Bill Schmarzo, I met earlier this year. He works for EMC, and I was attending a data science summit that some folks at EMC Greenplum had convened, and there was a panel of consultants who were asked to talk about their experience in deploying big data solutions and so on. And Bill really stood out as somebody with an immense amount of pragmatism and experience. And so I really wanted him to share what he's called proven techniques for exploiting big data analysis. For many of us that are coming into big data just now, there's lots to learn. But for people who have been in the data warehousing and business intelligence and analytics worlds for a while, there's over 2 decades of history there. There are a lot of principles, a lot of experience that translates over. So I'm very excited to hear what Bill's got to share with us. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks, everybody. What I want to talk about is just kind of to provide at a high level sort of the things that I plan on covering at the Strata conference. First thing I want to talk about is, as Ed talked about, I'm a practitioner in the sense that I spend my time talking to customers and really trying to help them understand where and how they can leverage big data and analytics to drive business value, to really supercharge their business initiatives. And one observation that I've got is that it does appear, when I talk to the business side of the shop, that there's a genuine interest from the business stakeholders to try to take advantage of big data and the integration of advanced analytics to really make better decisions. They think about it as data monetization. That is, they're trying to figure out ways that they can take data and make more timely, more complete, more accurate, more frequent decisions that have a bottom line impact on the organization. I love Michael's example, by the way, the Starbucks story, where he was talking about how they were using data sort of surrounding the base product to augment the overall product experience. And I'm seeing more and more customers who really want to do that, who see opportunities there. And in many cases, there's actually a business mandate. And whether it's caused by all the trade press and all the stories out there, there's a business mandate from executives that we need to be on top of all these new data sources that help us understand how we can better interact with our customers, how we can better drive our products, how we can better manage our operations in order to drive bottom line impact. There's an interesting factoid that came out of the Business Week research about a year or so ago, and this research they did said that 77% of the executives they'd interviewed knew of bad decisions that were being made because of lack of access to timely or accurate or complete data. 77%, 3/4 of executives knew that bad decisions were being made. And now I think things like that and the realization that making decisions based on gut, making decisions based on what happened last year is insufficient in a world that's moving and as dynamic as it is today. My second observation, which, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but I was sitting in a customer meeting about a month ago, and the customer, we're talking about big data and analytics and trying to figure out how we could what areas of the business we could help them with. And the customer said, hey, I only have 3 questions I'm trying to answer. I thought, wow, 3 questions? You can boil your business down to 3 questions. I really want to hear what those 3 questions are. And she said, who are my most valuable customers? What are my most important products? And what are my most successful campaigns? Now, as I thought about that, those are the kinds of questions that people have been trying to ask for at least the last 2 decades. And what's interesting here is the nuance in the terms valuable, important, and successful. For example, I talk about valuable customers. What does that mean? Does it mean the biggest customers from a revenue perspective? Does it mean my most profitable when I factor in the cost of the revenue they generate and the cost to service them? Does it include things like lifetime value? Am I actually looking beyond at the next level and trying to understand the net influencer or social impact that customers have? Now, the secret to answering those questions is really in the nuances of how the customer, or how the client in this case, define the word valuable. And I know, for example, in talking to a B2B customer just this last week, that they struggled to understand who their biggest customers were from revenue perspective, whether it was through acquisitions or new product introductions or whatever it was. Whenever somebody at the high top of the organization said, how much revenue did we get from, so-and-so last year and how much have we gotten this year, the data minions literally had to go running around different systems pulling that data together. They had no way to answer that question really cleanly. And that's at the very, naive is the wrong term, that's a very rookie level question to ask and doesn't allow you at all to get down to the level of nuances about what really is a valuable customer. Same thing with products as well and importance. And so one thing we're going to talk about at the Strata is really to understand the kinds of questions people are trying to ask and most importantly, the kinds of decisions they're trying to drive. For example, if I understand who my most valuable customers are, that impacts my marketing acquisition campaigns. That impacts my sales, upsell, and cross-sell campaigns. It impacts what I'm looking for from a churn perspective and a prioritization perspective. Understanding what valuable is, or from a product perspective, understanding what my most important products are. And, important might mean, units sold, or is it margin, or is it role within a market basket, or is it the role it plays in a conversion event, or is it the role it plays in, category management and flanking my premium price products. Understanding those nuances, those terms, because in the end, the reason why we're trying to answer those questions is because we need to make decisions. We need to understand how to, from a product perspective, how to optimize our pricing, how to handle our packaging and promotion and distribution of those pricing. So if you think about the power of the question, the power of understanding the question, think about it from sort of from a high level big data or analytics value chain, which is big data plus analytics, allows me to ask questions that until previously I could not answer. And those questions allow me to make decisions that in aggregate allow me to drive material impact to the business. So that's one of the things we're going to cover at the Strata conference is really to understand from the business side perspective the importance of these questions leading to decisions, leading to ROI, and how big data and analytics can really help to drive that analytics value chain. The next thing we're going to talk about is a case study. So by the way, I love this quote from Gartner here on the slide. I love the fact that big data will represent a hugely disruptive force during the next 5 years. I'm not sure why they picked 5 years, but 5 years works for me. Enabling levels of insights that are currently unachievable through any means. So there's this promise out there that users will be able to ask and answer questions that they previously could not. But what's interesting here, and one thing I'm going to talk about, is that we actually have a case study of what happened in the 1980s that could and should provide insights and guidance for how this new world of big data and analytics could play out for us. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the consumer packaged goods manufacturing industry and the retail industry basically ran their business on bi-monthly Nielsen audit data. Now think about that for a second. You had companies like Procter & Gamble and Colgate-Palmolive and Coors and Budweiser and Coke and Pepsi making their marketing and product investment decisions based on 6 sampled points a year. And they're using that data to figure out pricing, promotion, new products, distribution decisions, packaging decisions, right? 6 observation points a year, the basis point for figuring out how they're going to spend their money. In the mid to late 1980s, something happened. And a company called Information Resources, Inc., IRI, came along and offered retailers they would install free of charge scanners at their checkouts, free to the retailer, and all IRI wanted was that lousy data that came out of it. I mean, who would want that stinking data? And the retailers were elated with this. They were elated with this because they took their most expensive cost, which is their personnel, and were able to optimize the efficiency of those people, and what IRI got was friggin' gold. And what happened was this allowed this new level of detail in data, where data sources went from megabytes of data to eventually terabytes of data, allowed Procter & Gamble and Walmart and Frito-Lay and Tesco and General Mills to answer questions at a lower level of fidelity than they could before in the past. And what happened is that these leading-edge companies developed whole new generations of analytics-enabled business applications like demand-based forecasting or customer loyalty programs or trade promotion effectiveness or market basket analysis, things that could not be done before, all of a sudden could be done before. And what happened is that not only did some companies flourish and blossom under this environment, but the power of the balance of power between the CPG manufacturers and the retailers shifted. So we are going to spend some time at the Strata conference tearing into that to understand what happened and how that had impact on an industry, how it had impact on different companies, and the role that at that time big data plus advanced analytics, or in that case maybe small analytics, had on changing the way companies worked and how they drove bottom line impact. I'm also going to talk about the critical role of the data scientists and how important it is for the data scientists to not be a bolt-on to an organization, but to really be integrated into the very fabric of the organization and understanding the roles, responsibilities, and expectations we have with data scientists with respect to how we're going to drive bottom line impact to the organization. So the last slide here, what I want to talk about and what I'm going to cover at the Strata conference is we're going to walk through a technique for tackling the most important initial question that you're going to have to address in the area of big data analytics, and that is, where do I start? The challenge we face with big data analytics is there's probably no business problem out there that we can't impact with big data and analytics. The challenge is identifying those opportunities that have both meaningful impact to the business and where we have a high probability of success. We want to avoid, for example, projects where we're going to cure world hunger, right? Would have huge business impact to the organization, but the probability of success is zero. So we're going to walk through a process for helping understand and help to identify what areas to go after, what problems to go seek, and then we're going to talk about a process for how we're going to drive collaboration and alignment between three key stakeholders in the process, which is the business stakeholders, the IT stakeholders, and the data scientist stakeholders, and how we drive collaboration using a concept called a vision workshop and envisioning exercises to help drive alignment and collaboration amongst the different parties. Mike, in a previous presentation, talked about the power of collaborative problem solving. And I have been involved in many of these vision workshops where you've got the business stakeholders involved from sales, finance, marketing, store operations, logistics, etc., with the IT support team and the data scientists, and the kind of insights that spill out of those kind of sessions, especially when you've identified a key problem to go after, are amazing. And they really can help folks to company. So I know I'm running out of time here, so I will kind of just whet your appetite to say we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about how we drive focus. We're going to talk about how we're going to identify an organization's strategic business initiatives upon which to focus, and we're going to talk about using a concept like a vision workshop to drive alignment and to get the project started, pointed in the right direction. To steal a quote from Stephen Covey before I leave, the key thing about big data analytics is to begin with an end in mind. And that's what we're going to talk about at the conference.
Thank you so much, Bill. I think that's such a fascinating kind of take-home. I remember Alistair Crowell, my co-chair on Strata, saying earlier this year that one of the big changes that big data and analytics brings it to leadership in particular is that the successful leaders and the most successful deployments are around people who know where to ask the right questions and what questions to ask. Do you think that's a fair thing to say, that that's probably one of the biggest determinants of success, the kind of questions you actually seek to ask in the first place?
Yeah, I'd say it's number one thing. Was what happens is there's many different stories, but there's it's not uncommon to have some senior executive in the organization have their favorite pet project and hear about, big data analytics and what's happening in some of these companies and decide they're going to go tackle that problem, right? Just because by magnitude of that person's will, that's where you're going to go after. And it may be the wrong place to start for a multitude of reasons, but yet you start there on a project that's on a path that's doomed to failure. And so you've got to pick the opportunities that both have material impact on the business, that is, it's going to actually impact the business, but two, you've got to seed success. You've got to pick an area where you know you can have a chance of being successful. It makes no sense to start off a project, heading down a project that may have huge material impact, but you know you're going to fail.
Well, absolutely. I really look forward to hearing you unpack all the case studies. And you're speaking in the Strata conference, which is the Thursday and Friday, the 22nd, 23rd in New York. Thank you very much for being with us, Bill. And I want to thank everybody here this morning. In a private conversation, Michael Nelson, our first speaker, said if the conference is half as interesting as this call, it's going to be a fascinating 5 days. And I'd really like to echo that and thank everybody, both in the audience online and our speakers this morning. It has been a fascinating session and really filled with potential and makes me want to dig deeper into all of the presentations. So this concludes our webcast this morning. Thank you again for participating. Please leave feedback in the chat room, or you can message us on Twitter @StrataConf, or you could send me email directly. I'm ed@o'Reilly.com. Thanks very much.